going on, everyone? This video we are looking at the Week 12 Monday Night Football picks between the Seahawks and the Eagles. Hopefully you guys all had a good Sunday. It was a profitable Sunday, but nothing crazy. Cashed on all the double ups that I posted for all the three early, main, and afternoon slates. Showdown was not the best, but definitely take it because we ended up fading Dalvin Cook, and he was mega chalk in double up, so it ended up not being much of a sweat in that. But for tournaments, you need a Tyreek Hill who went absolutely nuts. And at like 20-something% ownership, you weren't going to make a move if you didn't have him. And Derrick Henry. Henry wasn't that owned, but definitely needed Tyreek Hill to make a move in tournaments. But still happy we ended up catching in double up. So still a profitable week. I know some people had a really good week and some people did not. They didn't fade some of the chalk. So I'm happy about it. It was a pretty good week 12 all in all. And let's finish it off strong. So as always, appreciate if you guys hit the like button on the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you were wondering what the lineup looked like, it was the main one for Draftkings was Fitzpatrick paired with Devontae Parker, with Ridley, Justin Jefferson, had Brian Hill, had Gallman, Kelsey, Chris Godwin, and then the Giants defense. So also today's Cyber Monday, and NBA season is here in like a couple weeks. So if you haven't signed up yet, today is the last day. I'll keep this early sale because tomorrow's already December 1st, and then it's not much of an early bird sale when the season's starting. So today's the last day if you want to get in on NBA. But let's get into this game. We have the Seahawks and the Eagles. Seahawks are favored heading into Philly. The Eagles, there's a lot to talk about with them, and I think that I'm looking forward to this one because it seems like a lot of people are jumping on Jalen Hurts tonight, and I definitely would too if he was a bit cheaper. But $7,200 isn't that cheap for a guy that hasn't been playing much this year. I know Ian Rappaport, the guy that's basically is the truth, says that he's going to get a lot more playing time, but he has not really been right about many things, which is why I kind of made that joke about him. But Hurts at $7,200, I don't think he's going to play enough to pay off that ownership that he's going to be at. It's still Carson Wentz's team. Doug Peterson said that Carson Wentz starter. They're going to get Hurts involved a little bit, and could be seeing him play like maybe 15, 20 snaps instead of playing just a handful. But still, you're going to need him to probably get into the end zone at $7,200. You're going to need him to do something with his legs. And if he's super popular, I'd rather go to Carson Wentz at a lot lower ownership in a tremendous matchup against the Seahawks and hope that he kind of rights the ship at home. So one of the bold stands I'm making is not going to have Jalen Hurts tonight. Carson Wentz at 10-4, I will go back to him, especially if people are playing Jalen Hurts. We'll see Carson Wentz be super less owned. He's still going to get more snaps than Hurts by a lot, I would assume. And if he's playing well, then they could just see them bench. I mean, not like, but kind of move away from giving Hurts more time if Hurts comes in and struggles a bit. So I'd rather go with Carson Wentz at 10-4 than I would go with Jalen Hurts at 72. Wilson is 12-6. He has slowed down a bit after his crazy hot start to the season, but he's still been one of the better quarterbacks in fantasy this year. It's just that they're getting Chris Carson back tonight, so pretty surprising that Wilson has already thrown 10 picks, but I think I will probably focus on getting some of the pass catchers in there first, and then if I have the cap to get it up to Wilson. But I really like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Both guys should be able to have their way with this Eagles secondary. That is their weakness. They're okay against the run, but a guy like Chris Carson is still playable tonight because he also catches passes, and like I think half of his touchdowns this year have come from receiving. So he's not just going to get the most work on the ground, but I definitely think Carson is in play tonight at 13-2. And then we have Miles Sanders down here at 13-8. He has been the best running back for the Eagles. By far, it's just been that he's not been, really to make a move and get into the end zone. He only has 3 touchdowns on the season, but he missed a couple weeks due to injury. But they still given like Clement's gotten some work in the red zone, and then they have Boston Scott too. Against the Seahawks, the Eagles are probably going to be trailing. So I think that I would much rather go to some of the pass catchers. Not that Sanders is an awful play, but the Seahawks are good against the ground, and he is more expensive than Chris Carson. So I think I'd rather go to Chris Carson or go up to Tyler Lockett on Draftkings. Carlos Hyde is $7,000. I think him and Carson. Now that Carson's back, I don't think I want to really go with Hyde. You're probably going to need him to score at that price point. Fulgham looks pretty good for the Eagles. He's been one of their best receivers this year, probably the best receiver, and he's been playing the most snaps. If you look back at Week 11, he played 96%, followed by Rieger, Greg Ward. Jeffries is not playing that much, and for good reason, because nobody on the Eagles really feels strongly about him. A lot of the fans hate him, so it's been Rieger and Fulgham that are the two main guys for the team on the outside, and Greg Ward is the slot guy. So I think Fulgham looks great against the Seahawks defense. They've given up the most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. Goddard looks playable tonight as well at 6,400. Still missing Zach Ertz, so it's still going to be the Goddard show at tight end. I like Rieger over Ward because they're so closely priced, and Rieger plays more snaps. And the rookie first-round pick seems to be getting more involved with 7 targets 2 games ago. Got 6, 7, and 5 targets the last 3 games. Against Cleveland, it was just kind of a super ugly game with the weather, but I think he looks definitely playable at 5,800. You have the kicker. I would rather go to the Seahawks kicker, Doug Peterson. Seems like every time that he can go for 2 points, he does. Elliott only has 14 attempts on the year. He's not even getting some extra point attempts because Peterson loves to go for 2 for some unknown reason. And then if you wanted to play a defense, you probably would go with the Seahawks because the Eagles turn the ball over at the highest rate in the league. And then with the Seahawks, Greg Olsen got hurt last game, so you're probably going to see Will Dissly and Jacob Hollister become a lot bigger piece in that offense now that Greg Ward is out, and to see a lot more snaps at tight end. So I think both of those guys are definitely playable, and Hollister checks in at only 1,400. So yeah, I think you got some cheap tight ends to work with on the Seahawks. So I'm not that interested in going with the kicker, or not going with the Eagles kicker, or going with David Moore. I think I'd go cheap if I had to with one of the tight ends. And then on the Eagles, you have Boston Scott at $1,000 if you wanted to take a shot there. He gets some work behind Miles Sanders. He can bust off a big play, as he has shown. He gets some third down work, so at just $1,000, I think that he looks pretty appealing to save some money and then to pay up for some expensive guys. So Boston Scott got about 27% of the snaps back in Week 10. Looked at Week 11. He played a little bit more, played about 40%. So he definitely has a role in that offense. If they get down, he's going to be out there because he can catch passes. So I think at $1,000, you can't really go wrong with Boston Scott. And you definitely don't want to take a shot on DJ Dallas now that Carson is back. And that's kind of it. Cheapest I'm going with is going to be Boston Scott. I'm not interested in Jeffrey. Could look at Richard Rodgers too, but I think 1,800, you got 2 cheap guys to consider there. He's actually been playing pretty well and has been one of Wentz's favorite targets, which is surprising because it should be Goddard. Goddard had that late touchdown last week, but Richard Rodgers has surprisingly been a factor in this offense. But he's still not playing as much as Goddard. Obviously played 32% of the snaps last week. Goddard played 100%, so big difference there. And that is pretty much it. Let's look at some potential builds and ways to go. So we have a lot of cheap guys that we can consider here, like Boston Scott, Richard Rodgers. You have Jacob Hollister. So I think I'm definitely probably going to go with a bit of an expensive captain if we wanted to look at ways to go. Maybe go with like a Tyler Lockett, who has been hit or miss this year, but when he has been hitting, it's been like tournament-winning scores. Like he has 2 monster games this year, 2 3-touchdown games, and against this Eagles defense, I think he can have another really strong game. So he looks like a pretty strong bet to play at captain. He's not overly expensive too. He's cheaper than Wilson, Metcalf, and Wentz. So I do like Wentz today because I don't think people will really go to him. I think people want to take a shot on Hurts, and I'd rather go with Wentz at lower ownership, a guy that I know is probably going to get way more snaps unless he just comes out of the gate and throws picks, which can happen, but just have a gut feeling that Wentz is going to have a decent game tonight. We compare Lockett with Wilson. You have 4,200 left. You can go with pair Wentz with another weapon and Rieger. One of his better pass catchers don't have that many. It's really Rieger and Fulgham and Ward that get all the pass catching work. as wide receivers. And then 3,400 left, you can take a shot and go with like Boston Scott. And then at 5,800 left, maybe go with David Moore and just kind of go a bit balanced with, pairing both quarterbacks with a couple weapons. Moore is questionable tonight, limited, but some weeks that he has played, he has been pretty productive and can get you some deep catches. So he would be a guy that if you needed to pair Wilson with a cheap guy, it would be him. If you wanted to be a bit more different, then you could play like a Chris Carson at 8,800 and then play Miles Sanders. You have both running backs in if you wanted to go cheap. Playing both Sanders and Scott is definitely different, so I don't think that many people will do that. You could get up to Rodgers if you want, or you could play Hollister instead at 1,400. Who's going to get more work with Greg Olsen out for a while. So that's another way to go if you wanted to play Metcalf, which definitely don't fall to you. If you want to be super different and play Carson Wentz at captain, I don't think that anybody will really go that route. But if you do play Wentz at captain, play Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, get both of those pass catchers in there. And then you try to get Fulgham in at 6,800. You can go with like a Boston Scott, and then you can go with a Greg Ward. So that's definitely somewhere to go. Or I kind of think that Goddard looks similar to Fulgham, if not a little bit better, if it allows you to get to Rieger instead. So you could do something like this. Really going heavy on the Eagles there, but that's how you can win some money, and just because everybody's going to probably have more Seahawks. But it's a good spot for the Eagles, too, to put up points, and they definitely have not been pretty this year, but we've seen Wentz have some good games just because he can run a little bit with his legs. That's another way to go, and then one final look is probably with Wilson at captain, with Wilson and Lockett, and probably want to do Metcalf. And this one you probably won't have Carson Wentz. Then you could go Scott at just $1,000. You can go up to try to get like a Jalen Rieger in there, and then just miss out on getting to Disley at 36. You can still get to Hollister if you wanted to, and then just go up for another guy. But I think you probably want to go. I think Wilson is just a little bit too expensive at captain, so I'd rather maybe take a shot on Metcalf, play Wilson in the flex, and then you can take a shot on the Seahawks defense if you think they're going to be able to force some turnovers, or play Disley. But for me, I think the best, one of the ways that I'm going and approaching the slate is going expensive at captain but not breaking the bank. So I think like a Tyler Lockett is perfect at captain. I definitely want to take a shot on Wentz because people are down on him, and to get him at really low ownership on a showdown slate and he happens to put up like a high score, then you're going to obviously be in a really good spot to cash and maybe make some moves at the top. So definitely like Wentz tonight. And then I think that Wilson at 12.6 is just going to be able to put up points against this Eagles defense. He hasn't looked great, but the Eagles are really bad against the pass, and Wilson, pair him with a guy like Lockett, that makes some sense. Then I'd probably pair Wentz with probably like Jalen Rieger or Dallas Goedert, if I could. And the Fulgham is also in play. I think Ward is probably the fourth guy I would consider, but I think these four look pretty appealing. Then you can go cheap with like one of these cheap plays, like a Scott, and then maybe try to play. You could put up Wilson in there if you want at 12.6. He's pretty expensive, but if not, I want to be a bit more different. You could look at Chris Carson coming back at 8,800. I think he looks really good just because he's going to get work in the passing game. And we've seen him be pretty productive and have multiple touchdowns in some games in the past. Earlier this year, he was pretty productive. So 8,800, I think he looks strong, opens up some savings. You could try to put in a kicker. We haven't seen that, but Jason Myers will be able to put up points against this Eagles and have maybe if they don't be able to get all their red zone trips into touchdowns, you see Myers be able to kick 3, 4, 5 field goals tonight. I do like Goddard, and then you could go with Rieger. For some reason, I'm not expecting the Seahawks to blow the Eagles out. I'm expecting the Eagles to be able to put up some points, and I definitely think you're going to see some Eagles in the winning lineup. So just some ways to look at approaching the slate. So that's it for the Draftkings side. Just the main locks, I think, for me are Lockett, Wentz, and then probably Rieger just because he's super pretty affordable, or maybe Goddard instead because 64 isn't super expensive for a tight end who played 100% of the snaps. So something like these three, I think, are strong plays to build around. especially with Wentz not getting that much ownership. So let's look at Fanduel now. All right, Fanduel is pretty interesting because they do have Jalen Hurts super affordable at the 6,500, based on their salary. So I think Hurts is a lot more in play on FanDuel just because I still expect Wentz to get most of the work. But yeah, MVP, you got Wilson and Wentz. I think Wentz looks good this week. Good tonight, at least. Then you have Tyler Lockett at 13K. I like him quite a bit. I like Carson. Definitely not interested in Carlos Hyde now that Carson is back. I think Goddard looks strong. Rieger. I think on FanDuel, I'd much rather go Fulgham over Rieger because he's cheaper. And Fulgham has shown a better, higher ceiling this year just because he's a bit bigger guy that can get you touchdowns. And Wentz does like to look his way when they're inside the red zone. Definitely not interested in Elliott. I think Myers is a much better play. And Boston Scott is 8,000, so I'm not that interested on FanDuel. I'd rather go Greg Ward and maybe look at Hurts at 6,500 because he's super cheap. And Disley's only 6K, so I think on FanDuel Hollister is 7K. So those players have kind of switched pricings on both sites, but I think Disley is a better option. So at just 6K. You get a guy like Disley who played 65% of the snaps, and that was even when Olsen played 61%. So Disley looks to be a pretty nice cheap play on FanDuel and on Draftkings too. But let's look at some bills here. MVP-wise, if you want to be super different, play Carson Wentz at MVP. Nobody's going to really do it. And it's the best spot, one of the better spots that he's had to kind of get back on track. His season has been really bad, but the Seahawks defense is super bad. I think that if it was going to be any week that you can have some confidence that Wentz doesn't completely blow up, it's going to be tonight. So I do like Wentz because he's not getting that much ownership. I think you definitely want to look at Lockett and Metcalf. You can pair both of them together if you want, but at least get one of them in there. And I like Lockett right now. Chris Carson has 11.5. He definitely looks appealing. And then you have 10.5 left to maybe go Goddard and Rieger. Pair Wentz with two weapons, and you still got two Seahawks. Then you leave some money on the table just to be a bit different. So some strategy like this, I think, looks pretty viable if you wanted to go with another pass catcher. You could look at Disley at just 6,000 and then try to get up to Wilson at 16.5. You got both tight ends in there, and then you get 3 Seahawks and 2 Eagles, and then at least you get some guys that are going to be out there on the field. In Disley, who's going to play almost probably 70-80% of the snaps tonight at least, and Goddard that just doesn't come off the field. So you could do something like this, or if you wanted to be a little bit less unique, you play Fulgham instead, and then you save $1,000 and just kind of eat it just to be different. So that is kind of what I'm looking at on FanDuel. I definitely would rather go Disley than any of the other guys in the 6 to 7K range, and then in the 9K range, it's Fulgham first, then Rieger, and then Goddard. So a lot of ways to go on this slate on FanDuel at least. So I think it looks pretty interesting. Hopefully there's ways to. It looks like there's ways to be different and not have the same lineup with a million people. So for me, I think I'm looking at Carson Wentz, Tyler Lockett, and then I do find myself going to Disley just because he's super cheap at just 6,000. So that's it for the video. That's kind of all that I got to talk about for the showdown. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Can drop a like if you enjoyed. Check out the website if you want to join. And best of luck tonight.